Proverbs 15:28, the heart of the righteous studies how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours forth evil. The heart of the righteous studies how to answer. Heart of the righteous is going to be diligent. It's heart of the righteous, that this studying how to answer is going to be someone who's conscientious, someone who in fact cares what the answer is, cares what that answer is, and wants to get the right answer, not just blurting one out, because you can blurt out something and you simply don't know. You don't know at all. But the heart of the righteous is someone that's going to care about getting the right answer and getting that answer, in fact, the right way. There's caution, there's deliberation that's on it, there's prudence that's on it. Now, we come to this next one, the next phrase, but the mouth of the wicked pours forth evil. And the mouth of the wicked may have no idea they're pouring forth evil. They may have no idea. Now, they might, but they may have no idea. In a recent conversation, I just asked, what happens when we die? What happens when we die? And the first answer was, you become nothing. All right? Well, the person who gave me that answer probably didn't want an evil answer. Probably not. But that's not the answer. Actually, that's not the truth at all. We don't become nothing. And to teach that we become nothing is, in fact, to negate why we even need a Christ at all. Every promise concerning heaven, every warning concerning hell, everything concerning the fear of the Lord is just tossed right out the window with that one. Just tossed. Because if there is no judgment, if you're not going to be held, and if I'm not going to be held in judgment for what we have done individually, what we have done, then what's the point? There is no fear of the Lord. There's no point. His laws are pointless, and it's very much like Satan saying, you shall not surely die, meaning there is no punishment, and God's a liar. All right? So the answer that nothing happens, we just become nothing, is that not an evil answer? Well, if you look at it in perspective, yes, it is. It's not. Now, the person who said it didn't know, just spouting something off. But if you're spouting something off, it may seem right, but it's not right. And to say that nothing happens is, in fact, to do what we just described. You might as well just toss the Bible entirely out and just live however you want to live. Now, in continuing the discussion, the next answer, because we weren't, this was a moving target, these answers, next answer was that of reincarnation. All right, well, we're reincarnated. Okay, can you show me the proof of that? Because I sure can't find the proof of it. Nor can I find the proof that we become nothing. I can't find the proof of that. And you're not going to find anybody on earth who's actually died, buried, and they come back to life to tell us what happens after we die. There's nobody on this earth that actually has been put in the grave, buried. They are dead, and they just spring back to life. Nobody. Now, granted, somebody can be, because I can hear it now in minds of someone could be buried alive, but they're not dead. All right, that person's not dead. But no one has had the experience. Nobody has had the experience of being in the Hadean realm, being out in wherever, and then coming back. And if we use those answers that we've gotten, one, you become nothing, then they can't come back. Number two, if they're reincarnated, then they've gone on to become something else, and they can't come back because they're now something else with evidently no memory of the previous lifespans no memory whatsoever. So how do you prove? You're going to have somebody who actually knows. You're going to have somebody, and who is it? We can't trust each other with that because I've never experienced it. I've never experienced that at all. And you've never experienced that. So you can't really say either from personal experience. You can't say it. So we've got to go to some source that's going to tell us what happens. Well, fortunately, God does tell us what happens. He does tell us what happens immediately, and it's Christ specifically who gives us the detail in Luke chapter 16 of exactly what happens at death. Exactly what happens. And what happens to our soul. That our soul, body is left here, it returns back to this earth, but our soul moves on. Our soul, and I have brought that out to show that the heart of the righteous studies how to answer it, not just blurt something out. All right, because there are some very, very important questions that you don't want a bad answer. You want the right answer, such as what happens when you die. You're going to want that answer. You're going to want that because this part of our existence is brief, and it is us being tested, and we'll be judged, but the greatest portion of our existence is going to be eternity. This is nothing compared to eternity. This is nothing. Sometimes I call it a flash in a pan. It's not even a flash in a pan. It's not even that. It's hardly anything compared to eternity. That eternity just doesn't end. And, some people, especially a juvenile mind, can have a hard time grasping the infinite. Grasping that the infinite is not just a big number. There is no number to express. There is no number to express eternity. It doesn't exist. Because however big you can think, eternity moves on, and that's nothing. What you just went by is nothing, regardless of how many years, how many trillions upon billions upon more years you add up. All right, there is still more in this. But the mouth of the wicked pours forth evil, and this comes from a lack of the knowledge given by God. And while someone may not want to pour forth evil, if you're repeating a lie, you're pouring forth a lie. If you're giving bad information, even if it's not your intent, it's still wicked. It still is what it is. Okay? Now, let's go to verse 29. The Lord is far from the wicked, but He hears the prayer of the righteous. Now, let's just note some things in all this. The Lord is far from the wicked. Now, that is correct. I'm not going to say it's not correct, but we need to put it in line with other teaching of the Bible. We need to put it all together. Did not the Lord send His prophets to the wicked? To the just and to the unjust. Yeah, He did. It wasn't. He didn't just send His prophets only to the faithful. The faithful were the ones that would follow it, and you have others that may follow it, and they turn away from their sins. But you have a message that goes to Israel, and it really didn't matter, who you were or how you were in Israel. You received the same message, whether it was from Moses, or whether it was from Isaiah, or whether it was from David. You're receiving the same message given to everybody. And we go to places such as, within in the Gospels, did Christ on the Sermon on the Mount, was that only given to the righteous, to his followers? No, it was given to everybody who showed up. Everybody who showed up. And there's a mercy and there's a love that is there. All right. Acts chapter 2, we have the sermon that's given at Pentecost. And there would be thousands of people in Jerusalem. How many people heard that sermon? Well, we don't know. But there would be plenty there who just 50 days beforehand would have said, yelled out, crucify him. And there would be those. That Sanhedrin court, it hadn't changed, not in 50 days. It was the same men that were there at the crucifixion and plotted his death. They're the same men that are there 50 days later. They're the same ones. Is that message of the gospel, that message that answers the question, men and brethren, what shall we do? Well, that answer is given to everybody within hearing distance. And God did not discriminate. God is not a respecter of persons. Whoever heard it, heard it. And He doesn't limit it to where, well, only those that would accept it would be there to hear it, and everybody else would, He's going to scatter them wherever. But, so we have to ask the question, the Lord is far from the wicked. What does that mean? Does He still bless them? Yeah, He sends rain on the just and the unjust. He still does that. But it means His ways are entirely different from their ways. He does not bless them in their works. He's going to condemn them for their works. He doesn't bless them for that. He's going to condemn them for that. And the things that they do, they don't honor Him, they don't glorify Him, and He doesn't recognize it, not as being good. And God is not going to be blamed for the things that He didn't call His followers to do. And Christ, there are things that Christ is not going to be blamed for. Christ cannot be blamed for the errors of denominationalism because that didn't belong to Him. That didn't come from Him. He can't be blamed for the Spanish Inquisition or all of the conquests that occurred in the name and even though they would invoke His name in the Crusades, it didn't mean they were doing His will at all. It could be pretty well seen and understood that's not what He asked for, and that is in fact against His will. He never called anybody to go conquer another nation in His name. Never did He say that. Matter of fact, He said, if my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would fight. All right. Now, the Lord is far from the wicked, but He hears the prayer of the righteous. We just go back to verse 8. But the prayer of the upright is His delight. Proverbs 15:11. Hell and destruction are before the Lord, so how much more the hearts of the sons of men. He cares for every single one of us. Every one of us. But the wicked are just falling away from Him. And there's hell and destruction. And He works to stop them from entering into hell and destruction. He works very hard to do that, even sending His Son. He sees and He calls. He always has. But He hears the prayers of the righteousness. Yes, He does. They are His delight. He is not far away from the righteous at all. What does Christ say at the very ending of the book of Matthew? Lo, or behold, I am with you even to the end of the age. What age? That would be this final age. This final age that we happen to be in. We've been in it since since the crucifixion. We've been in it. We've been in this final age, and He is with His faithful. But while He calls the unfaithful in, He does bless them. He is not with them. He does not approve. He does not endorse. He doesn't sanction anything they may do at all. They don't belong to Him. Now, verse 30. Here we come, and we have made mention of this last week. There are certain proverbs that are simple. And there are certain proverbs that are more of a riddle. Those dark sayings of the wise, those riddles of the wise, those enigmas. Here is one of those that I'll have to admit, this one is more difficult. And every now and then we're going to come into it. And as we explained last week, the book of Proverbs doesn't start off with difficult ones. Book of Proverbs starts off very, very foundational. As the first proverb in the book is chapter 1, verse 7, and that is, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. The beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord. But fools hate wisdom and instruction. They hate all that. And, well, that's a very direct statement. That is very easy to understand. Anybody can understand it. But verse 30, the light of the eyes rejoices the heart, but a good report makes the bones healthy. Now, we can go with this in just the fact that your soul, we'll start from here, your soul does affect you bodily. It does. That you are connected, your soul and your physical frame are connected. You can will yourself to do numerous things. Okay. And also, someone who is going through extremely difficult emotional times, not physically difficult, but highly emotional, highly stressful times, does it affect them physically? Yes, it does. It does. Have you ever had a sleepless night? Why was that? Your body was tired, but your mind was not. Your soul was not. Something was bothering you. There is a connection. There is a connection. Your heartbeat races. And it races for a reason. Because you have something has occurred, whether frightening or joyful or whatever, and it has nothing to do with a physical exertion at all. But suddenly your heartbeat is racing because of something happening. And it is the you inside your body that has done that. And there is a connection. There's a good report makes the bones healthy. Well, it all goes together. This rejoicing and this healthy, the light of the eyes and a good report. All this are connected together, and they bring a benefit. And the benefit, obviously, is happiness. And what is it? What is the old saying? Laughter's the best medicine. Yeah, that's right. Laughter is the best medicine. And and I can tell you right now, I'll just tell you this. I don't think I've told you this before. The first time I went to go see Don Blackwell when he was at the Shepherd Center, and he had just become a paraplegic. He's now in a wheelchair. All right. He had that accident in Virginia. They did surgery or whatever up in Virginia. He is flown to the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, and we go to see him. And the first thing he said with us coming in the door was a joke about his condition. That's the first thing he said. And I'll tell you the joke. He said, I have a joke about a paraplegic, but I'm afraid it's lame. That was the joke. And I smiled. I didn't want to laugh too hard about that. I smiled, but I knew where that was coming from. I knew where that was coming from. And he may have made the joke up there in the wheelchair. I don't know. I don't know if that's an old joke. I've never heard it before. But there are times when you have to laugh because there's nothing else to do. You have to laugh. And okay, so we come back to the light of the eyes rejoices the heart. Well, what would be the light of the eyes? There is a mystery. It cannot be physical sight, because that would mean people who are blind could never have a rejoicing in their heart. It would mean, and I know that's not the case. I know that I'm not blind, never have been, but I've been around enough to know that's not the case at all. But a good report makes the bones healthy. That here, the light of the eyes, would have to be something in this that would make you rejoice. Something that is like a good report. And probably obviously it's parallel to the idea of a good report. Something good is seen. And there may be a whole lot more about it, and would not say there isn't. Because there may be a whole lot more concerning the light of the eyes and what all that means. Because I know that someone could see good, very good news. Someone could see something for themselves and have no idea the good news that meant, because it hasn't hit them yet. And it could be that someone like with a child, they simply wouldn't know, or someone enfeebled, they simply wouldn't know, or someone that hasn't put all the things together, which that would be like me. But once it comes around, yeah, there would be a rejoicing of, now I understand what I just saw. And it is good news. Now I understand. Now we go to verse 31. The ear that hears the rebuke of life will abide among the wise. Well, yeah, because the person who will listen to rebuke doesn't mind being among the wise. You think Ahab wanted to be among the wise? No. He wanted to be around yes men. That's what he wanted. And if you were one of his prophets that he paid your meals, all right, it would be best to be a yes man if you wanted to keep that job. It would be best. They know it. They knew it. They knew that that's how you appeal to Ahab, is you tell him what you think he wants to hear. You got to compliment him. You know, that'd be a good thing. He wants to do something, you tell him, yeah, go do it. Lord is behind you. Go ahead and do that. But he is not one that wants to hear the rebuke. He doesn't want to hear the rebukes of life. And when I see those three words, rebukes, that's plural, of life, that means it's to be expected. Just go ahead and expect it. It's going to be there. You ever heard a parent who may have, or a grandparent who may have been bragging about a child, their own, and that child never needs to be corrected? All right. Have you ever thought that maybe I didn't believe it ever? because I don't. All right. A child's going to have to be corrected. But a child that shows some wisdom is one that heeds that correction. And yeah, they're going to, now that's the child I would see in this. Not that one that never needed to be corrected, but one that took the correction. Yeah, that happens. That's good. And we are to continue in that way as adults. But hearing the rebukes of life, hear and learn, and we're always going to need to learn. There'll never come a point when we're not learning something, or that we should be learning something, and not just closing our ears and thinking that we got it. That's an arrogant approach to life, and it's not going to do well. This person is going to abide among the wise. 13 verse 1, a scoffer does not listen to rebuke, therefore scoffer is not going to be among the wise. Last people that the scoffer is going to want to be around. They'll choose different friends. Now the next verse, verse 32, comes, it's connected to it. He who disdains instruction despises his own soul, but he who heeds rebuke gets understanding. He who disdains instruction despises his own soul. I think that if you went to most people who they hated instruction, and we are talking about moral instruction, not just learning math or learning some kind of science or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about. This is that of moral living, wisdom versus folly, all of this put together. The one who disdains that instruction despises his own soul. If we go to a person like that who hates instruction and ask them, do you despise your own soul? They're likely to say no, if they admit they have a soul. I mean, some may not admit such a thing. But do you despise your own soul? The answer would be no. Well, how is it that they can disdain instruction and not despise their own soul when this verse, 15:32, says they do? You have a disdain, or you have this a hatred for instruction. Well, it's going to come around and hit you hard. It means you are taking your life, your soul, lightly. That's precisely what it means. That whether you chose right or you chose wrong, it doesn't matter too much to you. Or maybe that you have convinced yourself you can't do anything but choose right. Well, that's once again circling around to arrogance, and that's not going to get you very far. You're going to find out you were wrong. But he who heeds rebuke gets understanding. Learning. We go to Proverbs 3, verses 11 and 12. Do not despise the Lord's discipline. Do not despise the discipline that comes from the Lord. And that's exactly the kind of instruction we're talking about in 15:32. That is it. Now we come to the next verse, verse 53. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility. All right, there's no honor given to the proud. We can go back up to verse 25. The Lord will destroy the house of the proud. There is no honor given to the proud. All right, none. And that is an assurance that's given repeatedly through this book and many other books as well. But here, the fear of the Lord, and we have been looking at this, we've already gone through several verses that speak of the value of the fear of the Lord. And I remember a conversation I had, it was years ago, it was a friend of mine. We were talking about religion. He was an atheist. And I happened to have mentioned the words, the fear of the Lord. And he said, I hate that idea. Why should I fear God? And of course, in his mind, he had an idea concerning, he had a misunderstanding of what that word means, fear, but he also had a huge misunderstanding as to who God was. He, of course, no doubt, I think, would have seen God in the usual humanistic or it's denominational way as this kind of this tottering grandfather figure who he doesn't care what you do. You can have this grandchild that burned down the house. It's never been a better grandkid I've ever seen in my life. This tottering old man who nothing you can do is wrong. Nothing. Proud of everything you do, regardless of what it is. But that is not our Creator. And the fact is, why should we not fear the one who created us? That is, we'll go with the basic idea in this of in terror of Him and His judgment. You don't want to be in the hands of God, in the wrath of God. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. You want to be among His children. And fearing Him means that you will be obedient to Him. It means that. And that would mean, let's just take it to the Old Testament. That would mean that if you were told, don't touch Sinai or you die, that you stay far away from Sinai. You don't get anywhere close. You don't skirt it. You don't see how close you can get it. You give some distance between you and the foot of Sinai. You do that. You touch the Ark of the Covenant, you die. All right? In my mind, it means that I keep a distance. When that thing, of course, when it's in the tabernacle or when it's in the temple, good. That's where it needs to be, away from me. Because I don't even really want to see it. I don't want to see it. It's going to be moved with coverings over it, and unless you're one of the priests, actually a Kohathite, you're not to even move it. Okay, which would be by the rods going through. You're not touching the ark. The rods are touching the ark. You're lifting it up with the rods. Now, that fear of the Lord means that when He says something, we understand it's the truth and it's the law. Understanding that. And that let God be true and every man a liar. And we can also throw in let God be true in any angel who happens to contradict Him. Anyone else, an angel of light, who comes in and says something opposite, or someone claiming that God has spoken to them and they're contradicting. Okay, I'm going to take what God told me. And in this case, I'm going to take what God told everybody, not what you think He told you. All right, because this doesn't seem right that He tells the rest of the world one thing and He tells you something else. That seems a bit fishy to me. Here is just for a little bit. Let's read other passages that speak of the fear of the Lord. And we begin with chapter 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. 1:29, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. So if you don't choose the fear of the Lord, you're going to hate knowledge, the knowledge of Him and everything that He gives. You're going to hate it because you don't fear Him. And yes, that could be someone who knows the Bible very well, such as Satan does, and the scribes did. They knew Scripture very well, but it's obvious from their attitudes and the sins that were in their life that they did not fear the Lord. Proverbs 2, beginning in verse 5, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, from His mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk uprightly. He guards the paths of justice and preserves the way of His saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice equity, and every good path. You will understand these things with the fear of the Lord. And without the fear of the Lord, look, you cannot understand righteousness, nor can you truly understand justice, equity, or every good path. You can't. You can't understand it. You can have someone like, he was in Corinth. I may get his name in a minute. He was the man who was, hang on, we'll get there. Acts chapter 18, Gallio and his court, that Gallio's not a Christian. Gallio's also he's not a Jew either. He's basically a Roman, and no telling what he worshiped, but he wasn't going to allow the Jews to just do whatever it is they want to and bring whoever they want up there, and he's going to punish them simply because they said that he should. Okay? Now, let's ask the question concerning those Jews. Did they understand righteousness, judgment, equity, and every good path? No, they did not. Concerning Gallio, did he have fear of the Lord? I would say probably not. Probably not. I mean, I don't know. But he at least was doing his job. He was doing his job and protecting, and I think that Christ, no doubt, working in all that after he says, I have many people in this city. That's in verse 10, that he is working providentially in this. But concerning those Jews, what did they care about justice, equity, and every good path? Just the words, I suppose. That's about it. Now, Proverbs 8 and 13, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, and the evil way, and the perverse mouth I hate. So, to fear the Lord means, one, to hate evil, but also the things that God hates. Pride, arrogance, evil way, perverse mouth. He hates that. There's no value in it for him at all. He is against it entirely. 9 and verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. 10:27, the fear of the Lord prolongs days, but the years of the wicked will be shortened. I think it was last week that we spoke about, could you find a book that actually gives you advice on not only wisdom and justice and equity, but also how to prolong your life? That doesn't mean that your life is just going to be never ending here on the earth. It doesn't mean that. And wicked people can do wicked things, and things can happen. But here is this idea. The fear of the Lord prolongs days. I remember seeing a documentary years ago. And it was about a man who all of his friends were dying. And he could not remember how many funerals he had gone to. And he spoke concerning his parents, considerably older than him, obviously, that hadn't gone to near as many funerals in their lifetime. That their friends, by and large, were still alive, while his were dropping. And one would have to ask the question, what was happening? And this wasn't a matter of being in war or anything like that, but it was a matter of sin. That a sin he was committing, his parents never did. He was suffering from and with his friends, it was HIV. And they were dying. All right? He was homosexual. And they are dying around him. Whereas his parents, they're not, obviously not homosexual. They don't have the same issues. Their friends aren't dying like his friends are. And could the fear of the Lord as being the beginning of knowledge, the fear of the Lord as the beginning of wisdom, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil and everything that God hates, the fear of the Lord bringing you to righteousness, could it be that the fear of the Lord prolonging days means you follow His ways, that is your best opportunity for a longer life here? And the answer to that is yes, without a doubt, because the laws of nature coincide with the laws of morality. And what do I mean? Is that nature, your body, and everything around you, you will not be punished for moral behavior. You won't be. You will not be punished for following the will of God. Someone who is drinking, they will find some things catching up to them. They'll find themselves like the one fella I knew years ago said he woke up in jail, didn't know how he got there, and he was informed that he in fact killed 2 people. All right? He killed 2 people. Now he's in prison. And the judge made an example out of it, and he was drunk. There are things that are immoral, things that are wrong, and they will take their toll on you. Following the will of God doesn't take a toll on you. It does not. And there are things that you may not understand that are in fact good for you. Just because you don't understand them doesn't mean they're not good for you. In time, I assume you're gonna discover the why it's good for you. But even if you never discover it, just following the will of God, then you can't go wrong. You can never go wrong following God. You can't. Now, just a few more. We're not going to go through them all because we've got quite a number more to go in this. But the 14 and 26, in the fear of the Lord is strong confidence, and His children will have a place of refuge. And we talked about all of these when we went through them. But we'll just go to chapter 29, verse 25. The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe. This is the same thing. This is the opposite. Instead of having the fear of God, having now the fear of man. What does Christ say about those who can only harm your body? Don't fear those. Fear the one that can cast your soul and body in hell. Fear that one. The fear of man brings a snare. Yeah, it will. And doing the and becoming a slave to sin, becoming ensnared to someone because they've got something over you, or ensnared to someone because now you're dependent upon them, ensnared in that you're afraid to move to the left or the right because you're afraid of it. All right, what does it say about the Jews? Many, yet there were those, many knew that He was the Christ, but they wouldn't confess it because they were afraid of the Jews. All right, they knew what they weren't. They were afraid. They were afraid of the powers of the Sanhedrin court. They were afraid of neighbors. They were afraid of family. And when all that is good, when government is good, when neighbors are good, when family is good, you shouldn't have a fear of them at all. Nor should they want you to fear them in any way. But there is such a thing as family pressure. Family pressure is there for you to fear. And same thing with peer pressure and the like. Okay, we have come to our end for today. I appreciate everybody being with us. We will start on chapter 16 next week, and thank you.